and smaller. And you can ask yourself, how is that going to affect my business, right? Because there will be less people to hire, and if so many percentage will be talent, then if the labor market totally gets smaller, then the talent will obviously also get smaller. So let me show you a couple of slides on other countries. So this is Germany, Australia. See, Germany, it happened already. Germany is going to go from, let me just see the number just to make sure I get it right, from 41 million people to 28 million in the powerhouse of Europe. 46 to 28. Italy, that I haven't shown here, is going from 23 million people to 14 million people over the next 40 years, has to be said, but it's starting already. So you can see here, Australia. Do we have any Aussies here? Oh, yeah. There you go. Yes. All right. So in Australia, right now, they are actually crossing that line where now the pool of people is getting smaller. Now here are some of the reasons why it's getting smaller. People are getting married, starting families, and making babies a lot later than they used to be, or they used to do. So here, this is 30 years ago, yeah? This column here, 30 years ago. And you can see that in France, at that time, when you were 23, you got married. In New Zealand, when you were at the age of 21, 22, you got married. Now look at this column here, which is 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, and you can see the difference. Probably many of you who are in the range of your 20s will be aware of that, that people are getting married a lot later. And here you can see that we also have children a lot later. Not only that, we don't make so many children as we used to do. Yeah? So here you can see in 1975, that's 35 years ago, average in these places here, 2 to 3 children. 5 years ago, it's already dropped. So these are some of the reasons why we are getting less. This one here perhaps goes the other way, because the life expectancy, that means how long can you expect to live, has also gone up. Because doctors have become better in putting medicine to make us live longer. But whether this is going to help depends on whether these oldies but goodies will actually like to work. So that may be a little slight hope. So you're probably thinking, what about Thailand, right? Because I didn't show Thailand. Right? We need to see Thailand, right? You want to see Thailand? You want to see Thailand, right? Okay. So this is Thailand. With the same principles as before, 50 years back, 50 years ahead, and you can see that in 2025, which is 14 years from now, it seems a long time, but it's not, because you can see already for many years, you know, it's going down. So the growth of the labor market in Thailand is not as big as it used to be. So it is getting smaller and smaller, and eventually, in some years from now, then the pool of people will get smaller. And we know that we are, let's say, we are 64 million people in Thailand, give and take a few. Half is the labor market, plus perhaps 1 or 2 million, right? So say it's about 32, 34, 35 million people are actually in the labor market. Only 5 million of those people have a degree higher than a bachelor. So bachelor degree and above. Only 5 million people. So out of the whole population there, not a lot, yeah? So let's move on to the question that I showed you before, and what the guy actually asked the CEO. Why should I come and work for you? So this is where you should pay attention, right? So just stay with me for a few minutes. We're going to run through a couple of slides now. The EVP, not VIP, but EVP, it stands for Employee Value Proposition. And the EVP in HR terms is what salespeople call USP, unique selling points. It's the reasons, it's the bullet points why you should buy my product, or in this case, why you should come and work for me. So here it is, the employer branding, which makes you employer of choice. I think Americans started this concept of becoming or being an employer of choice. So they started a couple of years back. So actually brand your company and not so much your product is what this is all about. No longer can you just market and brand your products. You've got to start branding your company as an employer of choice. It's critical to actually attracting the right people. As I mentioned, the young generation will choose where they want to work. If you are seen as an attractive place, they may come and work for you. Now, how do you actually make it attractive? Right? A lot of ways you can make it attractive. It's about answering what's in it for me. Like, you've got to put yourself in the shoes of all the people that are looking for jobs and ask yourself, how do I answer this question? Here are some points that will be a part of your EVP. And let me tell you, if anybody has ever made a budget, huge budget, a business plan, you know that you don't do that sort of over the weekend, right? Perhaps many weekends. It's a real tough process. Likewise, with the EVP, it's something that you cannot do over lunch. You've got to call the management team together. You really go, you have to, as you do with a business plan, spend time and brainstorm, document that as you do the business plan. So I'm not saying this is easy. Very difficult. When we are trying to do it in our firm, so difficult, I can tell you. When I ask people, or clients in this case, when I meet them for a brief, when the candidates ask me, why should I come and work for your client, what should I say? And they never asked that, never heard that question. So they would say, well, we are an international company. We are in Saturn, very prestigious building. We have a head office in Europe. Right? Kind of like then it starts to run dry. Say, okay, how many companies do you think fits that profile? International, in Saturn, head office in Europe? Just a few, right? So this is not enough, but it's a part of the EVP, right? So you've got to find a good location. You've got to make sure that the condition of your premises are really up, to standard, painted. The boxes that have to go to the warehouse are not in your reception, because when good people come and to interview, they will notice. They don't want to work in a place like that. They come into the meeting room, cups, empty cups, half empty cups in the meeting room from the last meeting, not yet cleared. They take a little mental picture. They will not work in a place like that. If your receptionist is a bitch, and many are, I meet a lot of them, yeah? But many are absolutely fantastic. But if she has a bad day, this is enough to scare the good people away, because they don't want to work in a place like that. If you as an interviewer come in and you're not prepared and you're messing around with the papers and you're not sort of asking the right questions, you lost it. There's so many things that can go wrong. Career opportunities, but realistic. We know many international companies say, yeah, you have a good career, but hey, look, actually not. We come into this is the end of the road, because the next two layers are Falang, they're not going to move. So this is the end of the road, right? That's the way it is. Do you have a CSR policy? Do you do anything not for marketing purpose, behind the scene? What about the atmosphere in the office? If you've been to DTAC's office, for example, wow. I mean, you go from one floor to the next, right? There's no elevator or stairs. You slide, right? You jump in and then you slide. Phew. You can go into the rooms, you can play guitar if you want, and things like that. I'm not saying you should all do that, but social events, do you have outings, New Year parties? What about flexible hours? Can you work from home? What about the management style? Is it still old-fashioned or not? These things here are part of the EVP, but there's a lot more. And each company has to really sit down and think deep on these issues, and then come up with that, so you can, when you are out advertising, when you are interviewing, you can actually talk about that to convince the candidates that you have a great place. Unfortunately, we are not all Apple or Google or Starbucks. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Really, that would be nice, right? Then we really didn't have to talk about this today. But there are just a few Apples and Googles in the world, right? So the rest of us will have to work it the hard way. Okay, so what's my next slide? Yeah, you may ask, how do I find out what could be good value propositions, selling points for my company? Well, this is the good news. You probably have a lot of staff, or whatever number of staff you have. Ask them this question. When you have your annual, or I hope, every 6 months review or development dialogue, you ask this question. Say, you know, actually, why did you come and work here? What was it that made you convinced when we hired you a couple of years back that this was a good place? Why are you still staying here? Because the bad news, if they say, yeah, I asked myself that question as well.